say you kind of look like me, man. You kind
No,
of
you
look
look like me.
Kind of look like you could be related, man. I know you from somewhere. I know you. You know.
Since birth.
Nah, it's my pops right here, but I don't want to sell him short, so I want to let him introduce himself. But he, you know, he do a lot of wonderful things. He here, and I'm gonna try to not talk too much about you being my pops, you know. But if you could just introduce yourself, so they know a little bit.
So I'm Makram El-Amin, and I'm the Imam of Masjid An-Nur in North Minneapolis. This is my 25th year leading the congregation. In addition to that, we do some work in the community under the organization called El-Amin. Well, I also serve as the executive director there with a lot of work and services, housing, employment, you know, mentoring, and food services as well. So we're, you know, delighted to be in the community and been here for a long time, very much vested in our community and the quality of life for people. So, yes.
I want to talk about a lot of things. I mean, first I want to talk about, you say you're the Imam.
Yes.
Right? How long you been the Imam?
This is my 25th year now.
25th year. I want to learn a little bit, like, when did you decide that you was going to become an Imam? Like, what was that, like that initial moment? What was that?
Yeah. I mean, I like to say that I didn't choose it, it chose me. It chose me. So the situation where, you know, very young, early on, even preteen, my father was, your grandfather, my father, was also an Imam. And when we moved to Minneapolis, he was leading the congregation for a number of years, maybe 6 or 8 years. And I remember, you know, being with him. I remember him taking me with him, being able to speak to him, speak with him. He would sometimes put me on the podium to say a few words before he would actually speak. And so maybe subconsciously that kind of planted seeds in my head. But
Grandpa's opener?
Yeah, I was the opening act. I used to warm the audience up and let him come and crush it. But he used to do that for me. And even when I was growing older, became a teenager and having my own struggles in life, you know, I found help and support for my own personal situations through the stories in the text, in the scripture. And they used to help me. It didn't hurt that he was like a fantastic storyteller, right? So, and we grew up around a number of great storytellers, and they would actually make the stories make sense and relatable. And I think that really started to incline me towards to want to understand and know more. And yeah, so by the time, you know, I had reached my early 20s, I really began to get a lot more focus, start to study more. And
so what age was it exactly that you?
When I became the Imam, I was 26 years old. Yeah, so I've been, you know, I'm 52 right now, so that's literally half of my life basically now, you know.
But being the Imam, is it qualifications? Is it what?
Yeah.
How do you?
Yeah. I mean, so there's a couple of different ways to go about it. It's become more and more sophisticated over time, but essentially in our congregation, it's the one where the elders would approve you. They would approve you, those who were in the congregation, those who are elders, they understood, you know, religious texts and what they would essentially test you and rate you and approve you. And so it was more of an organic tradition, not like a seminary or some formal academic background, but it was more of an organic position that is gained through the elders approving you. Really similar, honestly, to traditions back in Africa and other places, the elders who approved you. Those,
like passing the torch?
Yeah, those are the ones who said, you know, you ready now, you ready. So we had a very similar type situation in our congregation, yeah.
So I mean, did you always know you wanted to become an Imam?
No, I didn't. I think that this is something that, you know, sometimes we don't always know. We don't always plan things, and sometimes things happen. I do feel that it's my calling. I do feel it's my calling, or one of them. I've come to know that over the course of time, but I didn't wake up. I was like every other you know, kid in urban America. I thought I was going to be in the NBA. I thought I was going to play football or do, you know, some other, you know, fabulous type of, you know, performing type of career scenario. But this helping people, assisting people, and helping make sense out of things has been, I think, truly my calling. It doesn't really feel like work to me sometimes, even though it'd be heavy. It's like what I do. So if people say, well, what do you work? I say, well, I do this. This is what I do, right? So that's how I look at the work we do.
So besides Grandpa, who was some leaders you looked up to, other Imam?
Yeah. I mean, Imam Wathidi Muhammad, who was the leader of our community, you know, brought our community from the Nation of Islam, where Elijah Muhammad and others, Malcolm, Muhammad Ali, we come from that lineage. We come from those people.
We come from the nation?
Yes, we come from the Nation of Islam to Al-Islam. So all of those figures, those popular figures, you know, that they influenced me like they influenced, you know, millions of others. You know, in fact, you know, even the autobiography of Malcolm X, you know, is attributed by many people, not just African American people, but all people of the way that people understood Islam and came to Islam through that narrative, through that conversation or that story. So we come from that too. We come from that too, and I think I was influenced by all of them. I can remember running around the house as a kid, man, playing Muhammad Ali. You know, and he used to have a cartoon. We used to watch his cartoon, the Muhammad Ali cartoon, on Saturday mornings. He was like a superhero for us, you know what I mean? So that was a major influence on my life, for sure.
But like, you know, the Nation of Islam, a lot of people, they get criticism for, you know, some say it's not true Islam.
Yeah.
Some say, some even try to say like dictatorship type things.
Yeah.
I just want you to kind of respond to some of that stuff.
You know, I think, you know, one of the things that it does have its critiques, you know, it's the theology of it is not compatible with Al-Islam as we come to know over the course of time. However, I will say that, you know, there was no other messages of Islamic messages that was coming into the hood, coming into the ghettos, coming into the place where blacks were really, African Americans and others really were struggling just to make sense, identity issues and everything under real oppressive kinds of conditions. Nobody gave hope like this message, right? I mean, my father, who joined when he was 19 years old, said, if it wasn't for this message, it wasn't for Elijah Muhammad himself, if I didn't hear from him, if I didn't hear his message, I would be dead or in prison. So the fact that I'm here, and by extension you here too, we've all benefited either directly or indirectly from this message as well. So I understand what people say about this or that. These are people who have the privilege of being hindsight. You know, they got a privilege of coming after all the work has been done and then point out and critique certain things. But we believe that God has a plan for everything. There's nothing's by coincidence or anything like that. So you know, I understand it, but I'm also offended by it too, because again, you know, those who come from different places and spaces and have critical things to say, you know, my response is like, well, where were you? Where were you when we were struggling? Where were you when we, you know, the world saw us, our people, under great oppression from slavery and everything else? Where were you all? You know what I mean? So I get it, but again, I know enough to know. And one of the things that the Nation of Islam did for us was it gave us, you know, I don't suffer from like low self-esteem. Like, you know, I believe in myself. I got self-efficacy. I believe that I can endure, I can, you know, overcome things. And that was something that was drilled into us, that level of confidence. Some people say overconfident, but if you don't have it in this world will be too much for you.
So what were some of the things that were different?
I mean, the concept of God, you know, the idea of, they basically took the concept of God and borrowed it from other things, Christianity, but myth and other things, and really made it into a thing and put the black man, and so the black man was God, right? But it was really like a powerful psychology to try to get you to see yourself in a better image, because everything that we had from an image standpoint was somebody who didn't look like us, right? So psychologically, after you say that over the course of time, you would say or feel as though you're inadequate, even though nobody never said it to you overtly. When they show, you know, who looks like God, who is this, who's that, and you're looking at a picture and it's somebody who looks very opposite of you, that in and of itself has psychological consequences for people, right? To make them feel less than and so on. So these kinds of things were part and parcel of why this message was such a powerful and such attractive message. Even today, you know, you look and see and hear in African American communities and others, you know, names like Malik, names like Muhammad, names like you know, Jamal, names like Hassan, all these kind of things. Those are all Islamic-based names with beautiful, beautiful meanings. But really, what it shows is the influence that Islam had, and particularly the Nation of Islam had in that time, and how people began to take on different names, attributes, and so on to help them be their best self. You know what I mean? So I get the criticism. I get that. The main one was the concept of God. It wasn't compatible with Islam. Those things we've left alone. But some of those other, you know, self-identity, self-worth, value, you know, moral life, etc. Those are things that we held on to, and a real commitment to our people that we believe we're supposed to be in places and spaces that matter. You know, it's not when we're not on the hill looking down at the people in the valley. No, our work is in the valley. Our work is getting there. So sometimes we got to roll up our sleeves and get it done. So yeah.
So that's similar basically to like the Malcolm X story when he went to Hajj and he like a new understanding.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. But if you think about, yes, but if you think about most people's attachment to Malcolm, it wasn't the one who transformed. It was the fiery one, the one who was bringing it to the people, the one who was unafraid and unapologetic about who he was. Nobody could debate with Malcolm. Nobody could articulate better than him about the conditions of our people, right? He would go into Harvard and Princeton and all these other places and Cambridge and every place and debate them. And was bar none the best, right? So a lot of times the images that we have, we kind of romance it a little bit. You know, it's a little bit about, you know, this transformative message, and it was that. But when we see people with the Malcolm X on their T-shirt, or they had that, most times they're not referencing that. They're referencing the one who actually helped us see ourselves better, right? And that comes directly from the Nation of Islam's influence on him that was transformed later on.
I mean, growing up, I feel like now it's cool to be a Muslim, but I feel like it was rough for me back, you know, especially coming up third generation Muslim, you know, 9/11 days, you get all the jokes. I feel like sometimes I used to shy away sometimes even, you know, I didn't want to be the butt end of a joke, you know, I didn't want to be, what do you say for people like that, you know, people that's in those type of circumstances?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, you know, it's because I've also experienced the same thing. When we came here, for example, you know, to Minneapolis, you know, I was oftentimes, me and my siblings, your aunts and uncles, we were like the only Muslims in the school. We was the only, you know what I mean? And sometimes that did make us feel away. I mean, when you just, by sheer number, you're the minority in terms of from a faith position, that in and of itself makes you, especially when you're a kid, you know, you want to be accepted, you want to have friends, you want to whatever. And so much so that we used to pretend. We used to pretend like you know, they used to call it, now they call it winter break. They used to call it Christmas break when we were back in school, but they shied away from that, and so they started making it more new universal. So now it's winter break, right? But everybody used to come back in school in January and talk about what they got for Christmas and how much stuff they got, all this other kind of stuff, right? We used to make up stuff, like we got this and we got that. Now, we would have new clothes or other stuff, but it was because we needed new clothes. It wasn't because it was based on the holiday, but you know, we didn't let that stop us from creating our own narrative. But that was the power of influence, man, peer and that sort of thing. When your generation too, when 9/11 and things like that happened, yeah, I mean, obviously that was a thing that was a great stain on Islam. And it really more and more, it was a stain on those individuals, right? But it's hard to discern that. You know, you start associating things with other things. You know, this thing happened, so they attribute this to the religion of the faith, when really there was these individuals that was doing some things under the auspices of the faith that put pressure on all of us, right? So That's what happens. That's what happens when you know, are the minority in a country or in a situation. You feel the group burden. You feel what's called the group burden. So when somebody does something that's associated with your group, everybody feels it for the group. So sometimes, you know, for African Americans, we feel like, well, like, oh man, I hope that wasn't that. I hope that wasn't this. So,
but when that happens, though, what is the correct response to that?
I mean, the correct response is really separating individual action versus the religious tradition itself, right? What Islam, there's and this is across the board, no matter what faith tradition you are, right? There's what the religion says, and it's what people do. Those are two separate things. Now, if you are Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whoever you are, that's true across the board, right? I've had the privilege of traveling the world. I've been to the Vatican and Rome. I've been to Mecca. I've been in all spaces in between. So, and I've interacted with enough people to understand that principle is true, regardless of who you are, where you are. So that's not anything that's new when it comes to that. The only thing I would say is that a lot of people are critical, but Islam, chronologically speaking, of the major religions, is the newest. So it's like, it's our turn, basically, right?
Islam is the newest religion?
Yeah, and of the three major religions, you know, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, right? So Judaism was before Christianity, Christianity was before Islam. So if you think about that in the trajectory, it's the newest or the youngest, so to speak, right? In terms of coming to the consciousness and the minds of people across the world, right? But so when you see that, particularly in this country now, you know, if you study history, and that's why we have to be students. You got to be intelligent, you got to study, you got to understand that Catholic people suffered oppression in this country too when they came, right? The Irish and others, right? Jews as well. Everybody has their struggle story. Everybody has their rejection story and how they were persecuted and so on and so forth. You spend any amount of time with them, you know, you'll hear that, right? This is us going through our struggle story. This is us dealing with that, how the things that we've had to endure and whatnot, and the ramifications it's had on our children now too, right? So much so, like you said, now it's kind of like it seems like it's more trendy or whatever the case may be. I mean, some would argue, say this was all part of God's plan. You know, it ushered Islam upon the scene, and one of those things that 9/11 and other things did was it forced us to say what Islam is and what Islam is not. It forced you to say it. So to say I'm a Muslim, that's not enough in today's society, because people are going to say, what does that mean? What does that mean? You got to actually articulate what you believe, what you do. Are there different type of
Muslims?
I think there are people who, we've become that way. And let me explain. I said we become that way because people emphasize one thing or another, and they base their identity on that. So now you got all these segments, these various things, Sunni, Shia, all these kind of things too. When Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he preached Islam, this language, these categories never existed. You were just a Muslim. But after you start to grow in understanding, grow in influence, people start to influence this or emphasize this or that, and they base their identities around that. So are there more than one Muslims? Theologically, I mean, from a textual standpoint, full context, no. Muslims are Muslims, right? But from a functional standpoint, absolutely. There are a number of different sects that has emerged.
Yeah, because it's like a lot of things, like I would say, like foreign Muslims, like Arab, Somalis. I ran into situations in school and whatnot. I mean, it's like they feel like they're better.
Yeah.
You know, they feel like the black Muslim is like lesser than.
Right.
Like, let's speak to that.
You know, I mean, I think, so some of this is honestly, it's true that some of them do feel that way. And it's true that I've experienced that as the leader for the last quarter century in this city. And I've still myself, even as many people know me and know myself, know my family, I have still experienced that same sort of shade being thrown by all kinds of other Muslims, basically, right? We know many things to say about this. One of them is that, you know, many have bought into this myth, this American myth, and it's this so racialized society that we're in right now too, right? So the myths and the things that were told about our people historically were also passed on to people who came here, new people who came here. And they began to embrace these old ideas because listen, if you live in this country, you're educated in this country, you make your money in this country, you get your scholarship in this country and all the things that build your identity and all that, then you're going to be experience of the race and racism and all the institutional, systematic, you're going to be influenced by it. Even we are. You're going to be influenced by it, right? So, so that's also trickled down. And even though we will say in Islam there's no superiority of no race over another race, we say that's part of our text, it's part of our stuff. Functionally, it's different though. Functionally, it's different. That's the great challenge that we have today.
So do I get to like just have 4 wives though? Like, can I just pick like 4 of my favorites?
Like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you can. You actually can, right? But you got to take care of all of them. You got to respect all of them too, right? See, one of the things that you run to the, it's like you want to eat all the ice cream, you know what I mean? But you don't want to brush your teeth, you know what I mean? So you're going to have cavities, you're going to have a bad situation that's going to. A lot of these things, everything in Islam is a mercy. Everything in Islam is a mercy, and it comes to remedy certain situations that have taken place, certain inequities in society and so on and so forth, right? So I say that it's not for everybody, but there's a utility, there's a benefit in it. God doesn't give us things that's not beneficial to us.
So what's the criteria, basically? What's the qualification, as I say?
I mean,
for being able to
just for being married, period. For a man, you have to have the ability to take care of yourself and your family, and they're your responsibility, right? So, and I think that if you take upon more, then you have to have greater capacity. That's why it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody, right? So the idea of us—
that includes financially, like time, and
all these things,
material,
all of these things, right? So I think that in many respects, you have situations to where people are looking at, what they might gain as far as a benefit, but the responsibility that comes with that is something that people are not ready for. They're really not ready for, right? I'm not against it. I'm definitely not against it. I think that this is something that we need to just fully understand. So when you go into it, whether it's with one or with more than one, that you understand what you're getting, what you're signing up for, because ultimately you may be able to negotiate your way through life, but then you're going to meet your God. You're going to meet God. And then at that point, all things will be settled then, right? So, if people can sleepwalk through life and think they're going to do that, then I think that that's one of the things that, whether it's this subject or anything else, ultimately we return to God, we stand before God, and He will make the decision on how we live our lives.
A lot of my peers, they shy away from religion, whether it's Islam or not, because, a lot of times we feel like we not, I guess, living right. We not, like, what we doing outside of here may not align with religion, and we know we may not be ready to walk that straight line. I guess I want you to speak to, how should our mindset be? Should we just not try? Like, 'cause that's some people approach. Well, if I can't do it all, I'm not gonna do nothing.
Yeah. I think that's a mistake. I think that even the people who are committed to faith, committed to this, they still struggle with different things, right?
So if I can't, like, praying 5 times, if I struggle with praying 5 times a day, stuff like that.
The religion, it's a religion of moderation. 5 is the ideal, 5 is the standard, right? But the ideal for us is to do as much as you can as often as you can. Do as much as you can as often as you can, right? So the idea is that you work your way to it. I mean, the fact that you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to build business, you want to do things, those things don't happen overnight. We can understand this idea in any other realm except in faith, right? You got to build up to it. You got to build your audience. You got to build your brand. You got to do this kind of stuff. You got to crawl before you walk, and all these kinds of things. We will accept this in any other sphere except for the one of religion. And I'm saying that's a mistake. That's a mistake, right? So I think that we have enough in our faith tradition that encourages people just to be the best that they can, and not using anybody else as a measure to them except Muhammad, the prophet of Islam. He's the ideal human being. Why? Because he's a human being. He wasn't this divine. He's not supernatural. He's not angelic. No, he had the same sensitivities. He got angry, he got upset, things pleased him, this made him sad, all these things, but he was able to keep his nature intact. And he was a person that he didn't intend wrong, right? He wasn't one who made up in his mind before he left the house that I'm gonna do wrong, right? But he also wasn't a person who was perfect. He made errors, and so that kind of thing too, right? So I say all that to say, man, that perfection in Islam is not that you don't make no mistakes. That's not what it means. It means that you have good intentions, and if you find yourself outside of the grace of God and doing what's best, and when you recognize that you turn back to God, ask for forgiveness.
So even like rap music, you come up in the urban community, but then you trying to, your faith as well. Like, am I wrong if I'm riding around the car, with this type of music on, or that sort of stuff?
I think that all these mediums, arts, visual arts, performing arts, rap, music, the movie industrial movie complex, all these things. I think it's not the medium, it's the content, really, right? So the idea is saying that, some people will be more and more sensitive to those things, right? But you got some people who, very famous, MCs and others, man, who struggle. They struggle with that. You know what I mean? I'm thinking about, we had the Day of Dignity years ago. We brought up Philadelphia Freeway with Rock Nation and all of them, right? He performed, he did all that stuff, but he talked about the struggle of being a Muslim and understanding what this is, but also that, but some of that, it does come through in their lyrics as well too, right? I'm not saying a person has to be perfect, I mean, I listen to hip hop too. I'm a product of that. You know what I mean? There's certain, I like more things than others than I like. I mean, I got people who I choose to listen to versus people I don't, but that's my personal preference as well too, right? I just tell anybody and everybody as much as I can, listen, do the best you can. Don't deny who you are. Challenge yourself to be as creative as you possibly can with I'm talking about lyrically, the beats, the music, everything. I mean, put out something that people gonna vibe to, for real, right? But promote something that's good too. Promote something that's good, right? And I think that's one of the things that people don't understand. You can use these venues. Islam, many cultures have used arts, entertainment, all these things to really promote, what is good. And I'm saying, where are our Muslim playwrights and the Spike Lees and the hip hop artists, they're out there. I know they're out because I know them. They're in our circles, right? I know them, and they're as committed to Islam as they are to their art, right? And so I'm saying that it's happening already. It's already happening, and so you don't have to. But I'm saying you choose based on your consciousness as well.
Yeah, because a lot of people just looked at when I say people, my peers growing up, they just felt like. I mean, even they'd be like, man, do your dad crack jokes? Do we laugh?
Yeah.
It's this stigma.
Clearly they don't know me,
right,
clearly, yeah.
It's the stigma that we just so strict. I think that comes a lot from the nation,
yeah,
that sort of thing. But basically, it's okay in Islam to have fun, to be yourself, to dress nice.
Yes, to have nice things, to live in nice places, to eat good food, all that kind of stuff. Nothing wrong with any of those kind of things. The issue here is that if I do it, the way I obtain the money to do it, it should be legal. I shouldn't hurt nobody to do it, right? It should be a situation to where a part of my wealth, whatever I obtain, a part of it, I'm obligated to give back to those who don't have. So I carry these principles. So there's no cap on what I could make. There's no cap on what I could be. The issue is that but the greater amount that I do have, I got greater responsibilities in the world too, right? So the issue is, but you see that now too, man. You see guys who make it, whether they, athletes, entertainers, whatever, they do, after a while of amassing so many. I mean, how many cars you really gonna drive? You got 20, you got Ferraris, you got Bentleys, you got everything, right? And you still bringing it in too, but then you drive back to the hood where you from, where you really grew up at, and the issue: have you made a contribution there though? What have you done there, right? Drive what you want, live where you want, but the issue is those people who you come from, who has similar circumstances like you grew up, you got a responsibility to them too. And so if you forget them in your pursuit, then that will be sinful, right? But if you remember them, remember that responsibility, now that's more of a righteous approach to life, you know what I mean? So nothing wrong with having stuff. You know, we love to we travel, we've been places, we do things. You know, we live within our means, but nonetheless, we love to experience life, you know? So nothing wrong with that.
How about people that refer to themselves as prophets and, you know, that sort of thing?
I mean, so here's what we say. We think that in Islam, that Muhammad is the messenger of God, the final prophet. That's part of our faith belief system, right? So we don't accept that others, you know, self-proclaim those kinds of things, right? But again, what I say so when you ask me what does Islam say about that, that's the answer. When you think about my challenge to the Muslim or not, this issue is what are you doing to better the community? What are you doing to better the society? I don't care what you claim, and I don't care what you talk. What are you doing to make things better, right? I mean, as they say, I would rather see a sermon than hear one any day, right? It's the idea that I want to see what you believe. If you really believe what you say you believe, then you're supposed to be doing some good in the world. That's what I'm gonna challenge you with, even if I disagree with you, right? Philosophically or theologically or whatever the case, if I disagree with you, I'm mature enough, I accept what God says in my faith. He said at the end of days, he'll settle the disputes among us. He'll right all the wrongs, settle all the disputes. So that says that there are going to be disputes that's going to happen, disagreements in this life that we're not going to settle. He's going to have to come and settle those. So for me, whether do I accept to be other prophets? No, I don't. But beyond that, I mean, I'm not going to say a person can't say what you're going to say, because we say in our religion, to you be your way and to me be mine. To you be your way, to me be mine, you know? So these are just kind of ideas, man, thoughts that we have about these things. But I think at the end of the day, if what you believe does not motivate you to be the best human being you can be, I'm saying that's not for me. It's not anything that I can get with or really bond with. If it's something that's promoting death, destruction, hurt, harm, that's not something that I want to be a part of. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you say. You are.
Farrakhan and his teachings, he's real. Did he organize was that Farrakhan that did that?
Yeah.
Farrakhan, the Million Man March?
Yes.
His teachings and everything, is that still the nation?
Yes.
His teachings, and where you at with his teachings right now?
I mean, again, he is leading the Nation of Islam. That's the theology that we left when we came to Al-Islam, right? When we transitioned after Elijah Muhammad passed away, his son, Wallace D. Muhammad, brought us to the more, we call it universal Orthodox Islam, for lack of a better term, right? The Quran, the tradition of the Prophet, and so on, right? And Farrakhan, who also did that as well, chose to go back to the teachings of the Nation of Islam as well, right? So, do we differ about things? We do. We do. Theologically, we do think, but again, so that much is true. That much is true. But what's also true is that that doesn't mean that everything that he said, that is not a truth from a social standpoint, from a people of what we should be doing as African American people for ourselves, our communities, our families, and so on. He speaks some truth relative to those things, but theologically we have some issues with the things that he says. Absolutely. So it's like anything, and look, there's no one that we're going to agree with 100% on everything. It's not. It's just not. That's, we got to be a little bit more spiritually mature about those things. Now, am I going to, call this person this or listen, I'm not in the headspace to do that. I want to see who's going to be about making their community better. I can rock with you then. I can connect with you.
Do y'all support each other's teachings though?
I think that there's some. Do we bring support to things we have in common? Absolutely, we do. Absolutely. I mean, we went to Hajj and Umrah with some of the brothers from the nation. They came with us. We'd come together. Some of them come to Friday prayers with us. They'll show up with us on Friday, right? So is that support? I think that's support. I think that is support. But by and large, a lot of the things that we're fighting for, advocating for, organizing around, being activists for in the community, we show up in those spaces together for sure.
I remember you went overseas. It was a group. What was that group called? It was rabbis. It was imams.
Yeah, with the downtown clergy. Downtown clergy. We went to.
Can you tell me who all made up that group as far as positions?
So I mean, so it was it was maybe 15 of us. It was the rabbi. It was various denominations of Christians, Presbyterian, Catholics, Lutherans, Universalists, Congregationalists, et cetera, right? So it was a lot of varying of the Christian denominations went, and I also went on that trip as well. We spent about 10, 12 days in the Middle East. We went to Jerusalem. We went to Israel, Palestine. We went to the West Bank. I had a chance to visit the Palestinians inside the wall and through in terrible conditions that we saw, right? And we spent there, and we were experience our faith together in a space and place that every one of us, our traditions claim to be sacred to, right? We have the famous Masjid al-Aqsa that is there in Jerusalem, as well as the other traditions. They have their sacred places as well too. So we all converge and claim a space that's no bigger than New Jersey, essentially, as far as that. So you're saying it's a space, yes,
where everybody is like neutral.
Yeah, it's supposed to be neutral. Politically, it's not neutral.
So did you guys go to spots that weren't neutral?
Yes, I mean, so we went to in Jerusalem, where that's where the Israelis they run Jerusalem, right? But we also went to the West Bank. We visited the Palestinian areas. We went to Hebron.
How were they to you? To the group.
Yeah, you know what? I think for the most part, they were welcoming us. They wanted people to see and understand the conditions that they're living in. So there were many. I remember one time I went to a place there in Bethlehem. Right? Bethlehem is in the West Bank. That's in the Palestinian territory. Bethlehem is, right? And we were there, and there was a mosque that was there. And so I went to the mosque, and the guy he stepped in front of me, like he was blocking my way into it, right? And they looked at me like, this guy's from America. This is a black guy, so because that's how you show up. Nobody knows I'm a Muslim first, unless you just know me. Right. When I walk into a room, it's like, this is big black dude. Who's this dude, right? So likewise, these people saw the same thing. So he stepped in front of me, and what he's doing, it happened multiple times. Once there, and then once at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, right, where I stepped in front, and he stepped in front of me, and he basically was trying to ask me, was I a Muslim? Was I a Muslim? And I told him, yeah. And so what they did is he wanted me to recite El-Fatiha to prove to him I was a Muslim. Just recite my prayer, right? So he would say Bismillah ar-Rahman. He would say Bismillah ar-Rahman, and I would say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. I would finish his sentence every time. I would finish him. And after 3 times, he looked at me, and then he stepped aside and he let me come in, right? But so even there, they were tested because they didn't understand what was going on.
Can you pronounce Al-Fatiha?
Yes.
No, I'm saying right now.
It's the opening chapter of the Quran, and it's seven verses. It's Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, Ihdina as-Sirat al-Mustaqim, Sirat al-Ladhina an'amta alayhim, Ghayri al-Maghdubi alayhim wala-Dhalin. And it translates to say, with God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, all praise belongs to God, the Lord, the cherisher of all the systems of knowledge. You alone do we worship, you alone do we seek help. Guide us, all, the master of the day of judgment. Guide us to the way that is straight, the way that earns your favor, not the way that brings your wrath, nor let us be among those who go astray. Amen. So anytime we say our prayers, anytime we stand in line for prayer, this, and then we recite this every prayer, right? And we also recited other small passages or something, but this was the quiz that they gave me in order to be admitted into the mosque. So once he let me in, I had my interfaith friends with me too, right? So they were going to say, he said you can come in, but they can't come in, right? So I talked to them. I went up. I talked to a few of them. I explained what we were trying to do. We come in here as a group, et cetera. And then they allowed me to bring in the group with me, to sit in the Musalla, to sit in the prayer hall, to exchange, to talk about it, et cetera. And it ended up being a beautiful experience, but something that was hostile to be started with. You know what I mean? So many different lessons, man, many life lessons from them. Many of these people are very good friends and colleagues even today. But it was an experience that, it was really life on life's terms, you know what I mean? But a lot of lessons to be learned from that.
You, let's just switch gears just a little bit, the Fellowship Foundation. Tell me about the Fellowship Foundation. Like, tell me how, what is they only, it's only 24?
Oh, the Bush Fellowship.
Yeah.
The Bush Fellowship, yes. Back in 2014, I applied for and received the Bush Fellowship. That's what it's called, the
Bush Fellowship Foundation.
It's the Bush Foundation.
Okay.
They're here, local. They're in St. Paul. Mm-hmm. But I was awarded a fellowship. It was a 2-year fellowship that essentially they look to support leaders that they feel are, up and coming, people who have a lot to contribute to, the society, and, through a very strenuous application process. I was selected to be one of 24. I think there were about 500 applicants that year, or nearly 500 applicants that year, that I was selected one of 24 for a 2-year fellowship that allowed me to really invest in myself as a leader. And because
it's a big deal though, right?
It's a big deal, huge deal. I mean, they gave us $100,000 to use over a 2-year period of time to invest in ourselves, to build our skills, to get greater capacity, to learn things. I've traveled many places. I learned, I picked up a lot of things. So it was a great, beneficial experience for me as a leader, but just be even more so just as a person, right? Their whole motto is that we support ideas and the people who power them, right? So the idea is that people have an idea, they have a concept about things, they want to put things out. They've already demonstrated that they're very valuable to the work, whatever it is, and they come and they help you. That was a tremendous, tremendous opportunity for me individually as a leader, but also just as a person.
I want to talk about back in the day a little bit. I want to talk about North Side.
Yeah.
You went to North High, right?
Yes.
Correct? What years was you at North?
I graduated in 88, so 85 to 88.
How was North back then, as far as like population?
Yeah.
All of it,
I mean, North Minneapolis, man, I think, because again, it's a community school, right? So it's hard to talk about the school isolated from the community that we came from, right? So, North Minneapolis has been seen in Minneapolis is really the place where most African Americans congregated. The small African American community would congregate, and it really grew from there. We were born in Chicago, and then Dad moved us up here when we were in the 70s. So we were 6, 7, 8 years old. You know what I mean? So we grew up here. We became the people who we're going to be. We became who they are here, right? Who we are here. So, but North Minneapolis was always a place that we moved to, and a place that we had became, very attached to. We even live here still today, right? So, North High School was, the school in the community that, much different than how schools are today. I knew I was going to North High School when I was in 6th grade. I mean, it was always the expectation that that's my school. And when we went, there was no busing and all that. That came later on, right? So we walked to school.